Good morning, everyone. I'm Dr. Pamela Thomas from the CMC. Welcome to The Power of a Name, Examining the Importance of Authority Records. Mary Cornell will be presenting this morning, and they will be answering questions at the end. So please feel free to post your questions in the chat, and we will answer those at the end, and I will also allow you to unmute yourself at the end if you're in a place to do that. So take it away, Mary. Oh, and I'll post the evaluation link in the chat. Sorry, go ahead.
All good. Hello, all. Welcome to Online with the CMC. As mentioned, today we will be talking about the power of a name, examining the importance of authority records. I am your presenter, Mary Cornell. So our agenda today includes several items. We will initially look at previously on, then have a very brief vocabulary lesson, speak on what an authority record is, take a glance at components in an authority record, define the different types of authority records, list out some basic fields that can be found in authority records, and then I will mention my sources. So before we get into our webinar, I just wanted to point out a couple of past webinars that get into specific types of authority records. Firstly, we have Dr. Pam Thomas's Getting Serious About Series, which talks a great deal about the formation of series in general, but also looks at series authority records. Second, we have my presentation from what feels like another lifetime ago, By Any Other Name, NAF, Name Authority File Ins and Outs, which looks extensively at different kinds of name authority records, including personal names, corporate names, and family names. We are planning in the future looking at more specific types of authority records, but this webinar today is a very brief 101 essentially. And lastly, if you are ever looking for our back catalog of Online with the CMC trainings, they can be found in the playlist link that does include a few non-Online with the CMC videos at the bottom of the slide. So to start our vocabulary lesson, let's look at some acronyms. PCC, the Program for Cooperative Cataloging, which is an internal cooperative effort aimed at expanding access to library collections by providing useful, timely, and cost-effective cataloging that meets mutually accepted standards of libraries around the world. So the PCC has 4 programs it fosters: BibCo, CONSER, NACO, and SACO. We won't be looking at the first 2 because they deal more with bibliographic records. So SACO, the Subject Authority Cooperative, enables member institutions to submit proposals for additions to Library of Congress subject headings, Library of Congress children's subject headings, Library of Congress genre form terms, Library of Congress demographic group terms, Library of Congress medium of performance thesaurus for music, and Library of Congress classification schedules. The proposals submitted to these different vocabularies can be additions, new headings, changes to current headings, or deletion of current headings. NACO, the Name Authority Cooperative Program. Through this program, participants contribute authority records for personal, corporate, and jurisdictional names, uniform titles, and series to the LC NACO authority file. Membership in NACO is open to individual institutions willing to support their staff through a process of training, review, and direct contributions of records to the LC NACO name authority file. NACO participants also make changes to existing records within certain parameters. To contribute to NACO, you must either be a part of a PCC library or work with a funnel that you can contribute through. So, NACO funnel. A NACO funnel project is a group of libraries that have joined together to contribute name authority records to the National Authority File. Frequently, funnel members create records in modest numbers and consolidate their efforts to make a more significant contribution in terms of quantity. Seiko funnel. A Seiko funnel is a group of libraries or catalogers from various libraries that have joined together to contribute subject authority records for inclusion in the Library of Congress subject headings. Funnel participants may work in the same subject area. So I am a part of two Seiko NACO funnels. I am a part of the Seiko funnel for gender and sexuality, and I'm also a part and co-coordinator of the Seiko NACO occult and esoteric funnel. I also create and update NACO records for the CMC. So to continue, we have a qualifier, which is an addition to an access point or variant access point to further clarify its identity or to make it unique in the database. Tag. Each field is associated with a 3-digit number called a tag. Variable data field. The variable data fields are grouped into blocks according to the first character of the tag, which with some exceptions identifies the function of data within the record. The type of information in the field is identified by the remainder of the tag. So these are 0xx standard numbers, classification numbers, codes, 1xx headings, established and unestablished, 2xx complex C references, 3xx complex C also references, 4xx C from tracings, 5xx C also from tracings, 6xx treatment decisions, notes, 7xx linking entries, 8xx alternate graphics, and 9xx reserved for local implementation. These fields may seem like marked bibliographic fields, but are very different. Subfield code. Subfield codes are one lowercase letter, occasionally a number, preceded by a delimiter. A delimiter is a character used to separate subfields. We'll have some more terms as we go along, but these are some frequently used terms I wanted to let you all know about. So what is an authority record? According to the Library of Congress, an authority record is created for the standardization form of a name or term. This form is sometimes called the authorized, authoritative, or established form. On the authority record, the standardized form is the key element for which the record was made, so it is also called the heading. OCLC adds on, an authority record contains information about a name, a uniform title, or a topical subject heading. Each authority record may contain the established form of the heading, see from references, see also from references, and notes. The record also contains coded data that describes the characteristics of the heading or record. To translate this to bibliographic records, these authority terms would be found in your 1xx fields, 240, 65x fields, and 7xx fields. These records are your authors, subject headings, genre terms, illustrators, and much more. They bring records together, keep records by creators with similar names that are separate creators apart, provide instructions on how to use a term, and give references. I've got a couple of examples in the slide showing just the authorized form of some terms. The first is the authorized term for Champaign, Illinois. Champaign is a 151 field because it is a geographic name and it uses ILL period in the parentheses as that is the authorized form for Illinois used as a qualifier. Our second example is for the actor Nick Offerman, Joliet native and probably most well known in my personal bubble as Ron Swanson on Parks and Recreation. He is also a U of I alum. His name, like many personal names, is authorized as last name, comma, first name, with a qualifier of his birth year, 1970. So to continue on, according to the Library of Congress, an authority record includes 3 basic components: headings, cross-references, and notes. A heading, so we saw this in the last slide, this is another name for an authorized term. The standardized authoritative form of a name, subject, or title that is used for access points on bibliographic records. The purpose of using standardized names and subjects on bibliographic records is to help related records be retrieved together. Cross-references. References that direct a user from a variant form of a name or subject to the authoritative form. This is called a C reference, or from one authoritative form to another authoritative form because they are related to one another. This is called a C also reference. For MARC authority records, the references are carried or traced on the record for the authoritative heading. Notes. Notes that contain general information about standardized headings or more specialized information, such as citations for a consulted source, in which information is either found or not found about a heading. So in our slide, I have 3 examples. First, we have 2 examples of a cross-reference. The first cross-reference is a C cross-reference for Champagne. As you can see, the qualifier of ILL period isn't formulated the same way as the authorized heading, so this is a variant. The second is a C also cross-reference of Westerbanna ILL period, which is another authorized heading that is linked to Champagne. This was the historical name of Champagne in the mid-1800s, and items were published about the area under this name. Hence, it is also an authorized form. Our last piece, notes, which in authority records falls between the 667 and 68X fields, is shown in an example of a 667 field from Westerbanna's authority record. This field is called a non-public note field, and for the authority record example, it informs catalogers that the authorized heading, Westerbanna, should not be used as a subject. There are several historical headings where you will find similar notes in their authority records, which is why it is imperative to look through records notes before utilizing them in bibliographic records. So next, we're going to look at the components of an authority record. So starting out, we have the leader. The leader provides information required for processing of a record. The data elements contain numbers or coded values and are identified by relative character positions. The leader is 24 character positions long and is the first field in a MARC 21 authority record. The directory is a series of entries that contain the tag, length, and starting location of each variable field within a record. Each directory entry is a 12 character positions in length. And then we have variable fields. So variable fields are identified by a 3-character numeric tag that is stored in the directory entry for the field. It is important to note that there are 2 types of variable fields. There are variable control fields, which are the 0xx fields, and these fields are identified by a field tag in the directory. They contain no indicator positions or subfield codes. Instead, they may contain either a single data element or a series of fixed length data elements identified by relative character positions. The 008 field, for example, is referred to as fixed length data elements or fixed field codes. Variable data fields, on the other hand, contain 2 indicator positions stored at the beginning of each field and a 2-character subfield code preceding each data element within the field. Now, I know this sounds like a lot of very technical information because it is, but I'm going to give you examples of the leader and variable fields in the next couple of slides. And we'll look at more variable fields later on. The directory is coded within the 2 other components, so we won't dive deeper into that. So of note, some of the elements of an authority record leader are unseen because they are either defined at a deeper computing level, think for instance, being able to see the data elements of a website in XML, much like the directory components, or they are undefined. I'm going to speak particularly to the elements that can be viewed in the authority record. Our example I'm using for these components is from the name authority record for author Stephen King. So firstly, we're looking at record status, which I have highlighted in yellow in the upper left corner. There are several statuses you find in this field. They include A, increase in encoding level, C, corrected or revised, D, deleted, N, new, O, obsolete, S, deleted, heading split into two or more headings, and X, deleted, heading replaced by another heading. Looking at this record, we see the record status is C, which means it has been corrected or revised. You can also see in the 040 field by the additions of a subfield D. These additions indicate any time the authority record has been updated. Next, we have the type of record, which is highlighted in green. The code of Z tells us this is an authority record. The encoding level is highlighted in blue. An encoding level can either be O for an incomplete authority record or N for a complete authority record as this is coded. We're going to look at the variable control fields or the fixed field elements in an authority record. The first field is the 001010, which is highlighted in orange. This is the control number assigned by the organization creating, using, or distributing the record. In this instance with Stephen King, his control number is 790-63767. The other number in this field is a separate name authority record that was merged into this one. Next, we have the 003, or the control number identifier, also highlighted in orange. This is the MARC code for the agency whose system control number is contained in field 001010 control number. In this record, this is the N before the number, which marks this record as a Library of Congress created control number. Another example of this in a record would be an SH at the beginning of a subject authority record, which would mark that as a Library of Congress subject heading. The 005 field is the date and time of latest transaction. This can be seen at the top of the record highlighted in light purple. This shows 16 characters that specify the date and time of the latest recorded transaction and serves as a version identifier for the record. To break it down in our example, this shows the latest version was updated October 21st, 2023 at 6:45 and 40 seconds a.m. Lastly, we have the fixed field data elements, which would be the 008 field and a bibliographic record, though they are different components in an authority record. There is a huge list of different elements you can find in a record, which is included in my resource lists. I am going to look at fields available in Stephen King's record. These are all highlighted in pink. As an FYI, if you ever question what you should put in any of these fixed field elements, you can always click the text next to the field and it will take you to a list of authority record formats for each field. So we already talked about type, but as we know, type is Z in this record. Roman, this is the romanization scheme. This would only include a code if the 1XX was in non-Latin script. Otherwise, it's coded as blank. Government agency. If the heading is the name of a body created or controlled by a government, a one-character code denotes the jurisdictional level of the body. You may see this if, say, this were a country name or part of a city government. The Library of Congress always codes this as blank. However, it can also be coded as I for international intergovernmental, F for federal national, A, autonomous or semi-autonomous component of Malaysia, S, state, provincial, territorial, dependent, etc., M, multi-state, C, multi-local, L, local, Z, other, O, government agency type undetermined, U, unknown if heading is for government agency. It is blank in this record as Stephen King is not part of a government agency. Series. This indicates which type of series the heading and the 1XX field represents, if any. These are coded as A, monographic series, B, multi-part item, C, series-like phrase, N, not applicable, or Z, other. Series numbering. This is straightforwardly whether a series is unnumbered or unnumbered. This also includes if a series started out unnumbered but became numbered later in the series or vice versa. These are coded as A, numbered series, B, unnumbered series, C, numbering varies, N, not applicable. Ref status. This indicates whether references have been evaluated and whether those references are consistent with the heading. These are coded as A, tracings are consistent with the heading, B, tracings are not necessarily consistent with heading, or N, not applicable. I will show what references are in Stephen King's record in the next slide, as it is coded as A in his record. This means there are references in his authority record and they correlate with his name, whether through sources, etc. Geographic subdivision. This indicates whether the 1XX heading can be subdivided geographically. These are coded as blank, not subdivided geographically, I, subdivided geographically indirect, and N, not applicable. Personal names like Stephen King's cannot be subdivided geographically, but names like, say, geographic names, unsurprisingly can. Name use represents the author aspect of the heading. These are coded as either A, heading appropriate for main or added entry, or B, heading not appropriate for main or added entry. As this is an author record, it would be coded as A. All subject authority records would be coded as B. Series use. This represents the series aspect of the heading, like name use. These are two options here. Either A, heading appropriate as a series added entry, or B, heading not appropriate as a series added entry. Commonly, you would only find this as A in a series authority record or possibly a name title record. Lastly, rules. Representing the cataloging rules used for establishing the name title, or uniform title heading in the 1XX field. The options for this are A, earlier rules, B, AACR 1, C, AACR 2, D, AACR 2 compatible heading, N, not applicable, Z, other. The most common codes you would see in an authority record are either C, as many authority records were created in AACR2, and Z, which is the code used for RDA-based records. Now, if you're updating a record, say today, you would change this code to Z if it isn't already, as you should be updating a record for RDA standards. All right, so this is to give you all a visual of what ref status refers to. For Stephen King's record, we're looking at the 4XX fields, the C fields, and the 5XX fields, the C also fields. The 4XX fields are variant identities. For Stephen King, these are his names in other languages, as seen on expressions of his works, ranging from Hebrew to Russian and more. The 5XX fields look at other authority records that Stephen King is associated with. For instance, the alternate identity of Richard Bachman, as referenced in the name linked at the end of this field, is a pseudonym King wrote under for a number of years. The corporate body, Rock Bottom Remainders musical group, references a musical group that King is a member of. For all 5XX fields, you would find Stephen King's name included in a 5XX field as well, linking the records to one another. The last 500 field included is what you find in the record for Richard Bachman, linking the two. So now we're going to look at types of authority records, and there are 4 types. Subject authority records. A subject heading may be a single term, phrase, or a group of terms. The tag for the subject is based on the first term or phrase in the heading. Topic, genre form, geographic, chronological, personal name, corporate name, meeting name, or title. Name. A name heading may be a personal, corporate, meaning, or jurisdiction, including geographic name. Uniform title. A uniform title heading consists of a title not associated with a particular author. It can include titles for works such as films, television shows, etc. Series. This is also known as a name title record and consists commonly of both a name and a title of a work. The name portion contains a personal, corporate, meeting, or jurisdiction name. The title portion contains the title by which an item or a series is to be identified for cataloging purposes. Series titles can also be attributed to publishers, imprints, etc. Lastly, as relayed earlier, we do have a very thorough presentation about name authority records and series authority records available if you want to dig deeper into these. So name authority records, you will find these headings in a 100, 110, 111, 151, 700, 710, and 711 field in an authority record, or a 100, 110, 111, 600, 610, 611, 651, 700, 710, or 711 in a bibliographic record. Our example here is a corporate name authority record for the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. Corporate headings are 110 fields in both authority records and can be in bibliographic records. As you'll see in the 410 and 510 fields, these are not only different variants of this name, but also in the first 510, we see the previous name that the university was known under, University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign campus. So our subject heading authority record looks at a topical subject heading for cats. Much like in the name authority record, there are variant names in the Mark 450 fields, mainly looking at the Latin classifications for cats, and there are 550 mark fields as well. Both 550s are broader terms for cats. Uniform title authority record. So I want to look at a few fields in our example record, Anne of Green Gables, the sequel. Firstly, I wanted to point out the 430. If you're like me and grew up watching the miniseries, Anne of Avonlea was mainly what it was called. However, from looking at the disc label, the title screen, and DVD artwork, the title proper should be as we see it established here. This is further supported by the last 3 500s in this record that show this miniseries is an adaptation of 3 of Montgomery's novels, not only Anne of Avonlea, but also Anne of the Island and Anne of Windy Poplars. It does make it more difficult to consider this title when even IMDb calls it Anne of Avonlea, but I would like to believe the work itself should be what we use as our source of heading, and PCC agrees. Series authority record. Our example here is for the series, the Jane Austen Society Mystery Series. First and foremost, if any of you like cozy mysteries set in England with folks who like Jane Austen, the answer is yes, you should give this series a try. Also of note in the record are the 400s, which lists the alternate name of C.E. Lawrence, which is another pseudonym the author writes under, but also a 400 with the name Carol Bougie, which is the author's real name. I also want to point out the 64X fields, which are fields specific for series authority records. We'll look at them in more depth later on. All right, next we're going to look at the variable fields in the record. Firstly, we're going to look at the 0xx fields, which are the numbers and code fields. We won't be covering every possible field you could use in this range and every range following, but we'll be looking at the most commonly used across authority records. So if you want to follow along and have access to the slides already, you can find these different fields and the link for Mark 21 of format for authority data. Our first field is the 010, or the Library of Congress field. It's the unique number assigned by the Library of Congress or cooperative cataloging partner contributing authority records to the Name Authority Cooperative Program database. The field is also assigned to records created by LC for the Library of Congress subject headings. Our example for this comes from the authority record for the country England. What is interesting about this record is firstly, we have N, which tells us the authority record is a name record, followed by an LC number, but it also includes a subfield Z, SH, which stands for subject heading authority record, and an LC number for that. The subfield Z tells us that England's authority record was originally created as a subject heading authority record, but was changed to a name authority record. Second is the 043 field, or the geographic area code field. Geographic area codes associated with the 1XX heading and an established heading record or a subdivision record. Source of the code in a subfield A is from MARC code list for geographic areas. More precise identification of geographic areas associated with a geographic name heading may be contained in the field 052, Geographic Classification Code. Subdivision records would be often found in subject headings, so think about when you're creating a topical or geographic subdivision when you're cataloging. Our example for this comes from the England Authority record and breaks down as E, Europe, UK, United Kingdom, and EN, England. This field is found most commonly in geographic name heading records and subject heading subdivision records, but can be used in other records as well. Third, we have the 046 field, or the special coded dates field. Dates that are associated with the entity described in the record. These include, for a person's date of birth, date of death, and date or date range of the person's period of activity. For a corporate body, a date or range of dates on which a conference, etc., is held, or a date with which the corporate body is otherwise associated. For a family, a significant date associated with the family. For a work or expression, see subfield K. The date and time are recorded according to representations of dates and times in the pattern year, 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 month, month, or year, 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 month, month, day, day. So 4 for the year, 2 for the month, and 2 for the day. Unless subfield 2, which is source of date, specifies another date scheme. Our example shows the birth and death dates of Jane Austen. Her dates are established in subfield F for her birth dates, and her death dates are in subfield G, and then the field is closed out with subfield 2 of EDTF, which stands for Extended Date Time Format. Lastly, we're looking at the 053 field, or LC classification number field. Single LC classification number, or a number span associated with a 1XX heading and an established heading record or subdivision record. Source of the classification number is Library of Congress classification and or the Library of Congress classification additions and changes that are maintained by the Library of Congress. The hyphen between the two class numbers and a range of numbers may be generated based on the presence of both subfields A and B. This field is more often utilized in subject heading authority records, but can also be found in name authority records. Our example for this is the 053 field of Jane Austen. As was described in the last sentence of the definition of the field, Jane Austen's classification is created in a range. This range not only includes her works, but also her correspondence and literary criticism about her works. For our next set of fields, we're going to look at 4 more fields in the 1XX fields. Our first field is the 100 field, or heading personal name. Our example is of Jane Austen that includes 100 with a first indicator of 1, which lets us know the name starts with a surname and the order of last name, comma, first name, hence Austen, comma, Jane. This is followed by a comma and a qualifier of Austen's lifespan from her birth year of 1775 to her death year of 1817. Second is the 130 field, or heading uniform title, and an established heading record. Field 130 contains the established form of a uniform title. And a reference record, this field contains an established field form of a uniform title. Going along with our slight Jane Austen theme, the example is for the 2005 motion picture adaptation of Jane Austen's novel Pride and Prejudice. The first indicator of blank is blank. The second indicator is 0, as there are no non-filing characters. Then it is the title of the film with motion picture to differentiate that this is a motion picture, and also includes the year, as there have been multiple film adaptations of Pride and Prejudice. Third is the 150 field, or heading field. Heading topical term field. In records for references and node labels, this field contains an unestablished form of a topical term. Our example for this is the topical term social classes. 150s have both indicators as undefined, so those are blank. Then we have our topical term, social classes, in a subfield A. Lastly is the 151 field, or heading geographic name. Geographic name used as a heading, an established heading record, an established heading and subdivision record, a traced or untraced reference record, or a reference and subdivision record. Our example of this is the geographic name heading for Dublin, Ireland. This is set up as Dublin with Ireland in parentheses as a qualifier. The qualifier is necessary for Dublin as there are multiple Dublin counties and Dublin cities that exist. Next, we're going to look at the 3XX fields, or general information about the headings fields. There is a single 2XX field in authority records, the 260 field, complex C reference subject field. I have personally never seen it in an authority record and couldn't find examples of it. If you're curious, do go hunt it out. These fields provide information about geographic location, areas of interest, associated places, etc., that tell us more specifics about a heading, including some historical information. I also want to note one field that I'm not going to look at. An example of is for any authority record, particularly personal name records, the 375 field, which per the PCC committee update of Friday, April 15th, 2022, stated, do not record the RDA gender element mark 375 in personal name authority records. Delete existing 375 fields when editing a record for any reason. First, we're going to look at the 368 field, or other attributes of person or corporate body. Any attribute that serves to characterize a person or corporate body, or that may be needed for differentiation from other persons or corporate bodies, and for which separate content designation is not already defined. For in person, this can include designations of rank or honor. This for a corporate body can include designations indicating the type of corporate body or jurisdiction or other attributes. So continuing with Jane, the authority record includes attributes of Jane having been English and in Britain. The 368 does not include indicators. The attributes are included in a subfield C, as these are other attributes. A subfield 2 of LCDGT is included as this vocabulary came from the Library of Congress demographic terms. I would also like to note that with Jane Austen, while both attributes included are true, as far as we know, Jane never lived outside of England. So including the narrower term English alone would have sufficed for this record. Second, we're delving into the 370 field, or the associated place field. A place associated with persons, corporate bodies, families, works, and expressions. Field 370 should be repeated when start and end periods in subfield S and T pertain to a different associated place. I feel like we've been looking at England and Jane Austen a lot, so we're gonna step back, or to Jane Austen a lot, so we're going to step back to our friend Stephen King for this field. The 370 field doesn't include indicators. In subfield A, we have that Stephen King was born in Portland, Maine. Then in subfield C is an associated country of the United States. And lastly, in a subfield E, we have King's place of residence, which is Bangor, Maine. This is followed by a subfield 2 of NAF, which stands for Name Authority File. Third, we are looking at the 377 field, or the associated language field. Codes for languages associated with the entity described in the record includes the language a person uses when writing for publication, a language a corporate body uses in its communications, a language of a family, or a language in which a work is expressed. As both of our authors used so far wrote in English, I decided to look up another name. Our example is for author Gabriel Garcia Marquez, and his primary language for publication was Spanish, as seen above. 377 has no indicators, includes the code SPA for Spanish, and then a subfield 0 that links this field to the authority record for Spanish. Our last 3XX field is the 380 field, or the form of work field. This is a class or genre to which a work belongs. This may be used to differentiate a work from another work with the same title. Multiple forms of work for the same vocabulary may be recorded in the same field and separate occurrences of subfield A. Terms from different vocabularies are recorded in separate occurrences of the field. We're going to go back to our example of the 2005 Pride and Prejudice film adaptation. In the 380, this shows an example of multiple forms of work. All of these terms are LCGFT, or Library of Congress genre and form terms. They include motion pictures, romance, films, film adaptations, fiction films, and feature films. So next, we're going to look at the 4XX fields, which are C from tracing fields. These include variants of the authorized 1XX field. First, we have the 400 field, our C from tracing for personal names field. Tracing for personal name, C from reference. These are the 400 fields for Jane Austen. As you can see, most of these are C references from her name in other world languages. However, they also include a couple of alternate names Jane may have been known under, such as Lady 1775 to 1817, and author of Sense and Sensibility 1775 to 1817. Secondly, we're going to look at 450 field, or C from tracing topical term field. Tracing for a topical term, see from reference. Our example is from social classes. This looks at other terms that you might want to use as a cataloger, but are referenced under social classes. And then lastly, we're looking at the 451 field, or the C from tracing geographic name field. Tracing for a geographic name, see from reference. Like the terms for Jane Austen, these include terms for England and other world languages, and also a different spelling of England as England. So for our 5XX fields, we're going to look at the same fields we did for the 4XX fields. These will be a little different though, because these fields point to other authorized headings, not just variant names. Firstly, we have the 500 field, or the C also from tracing personal name field. Tracing for a personal name, see also from reference. We're going to jump to another author. Oh, it jumped ahead on me. It's a good thing I'm paying attention. We're going to jump to another author. And there we are. So because we've been looking at Jane and everyone way too much. So these are the 500 fields for Anne Rice. One of them is the pseudonym that Anne wrote romantic and erotic fiction under, Anne Rampling. The other is also a name that Anne wrote erotica under in the 1980s, A.N. Roquelaire. The subfield W in these fields breaks down as N, not applicable, N, not applicable, N, not applicable, and C, reference not displayed, field 663 is used. So this record would include a 663 field that explains these references. Second, we're looking at the 550 fields, or the see also from tracing topical term field. Tracing for a topical term, see also from reference. The difference between this field and the 450 is these terms are authorized and can be used in bibliographic records. We have two types of terms here. The first 300 550s are broader terms, or BTs. They start with a subfield W, which is a control field, with a code of G, which marks them as broader terms. The last three are related terms, or RTs, that could be used as well if they meet the needs of your record. Lastly, we have that slide I was on a second ago. We have the 551 field, or see also from tracing geographic name field. Tracing for a geographic name, see also from reference. For this example, I looked for a complicated one. These are the 551 fields for Germany. As you can see by looking at these different fields, these are all historic names. But you can utilize them as a cataloger, and I will talk about that a little bit more in the 6XX fields. So there are three different kinds of 6XX fields. Our first one we're going to be looking at is the 64X fields, which are fields that help set up tracing for series. Fields 640 to 646 contain information considering the treatment of a series heading when that heading is used in bibliographic records. So other series treatment information contained in the fixed length data elements of field 008 and in link, standard number, and call number fields and the 01X, 09X fields. Our example for these fields is the 64X fields for the series authority records of Jane Austen Vampire Trilogy by Michael Thomas Ford. The 643 is the series place and publisher. In the subfield A, it notes that the series is published in New York, and subfield B, it notes that the publisher is Valentine Books. And the 644 is the series analysis practice, our character alphabetic code that indicates a specific organization's analysis practice for a series established in the 1XX field, and for the record and for the heading record for a series. So the organization I just want to point out in the subfield 5 is the mark code for IHLS as a cataloging agency. The 645 is the series tracing practice. So this is a one-character alphabetic code that indicates a specific organization's tracing practice for a series name in the 1XX field of an established heading record for a series. And then lastly, the 646 is the series classification practice, or the one-character code that indicates a specific organization's classification practice for a series named in the 1XX field of an established heading record for a series. So second, we're looking at the 6XX fields. The one field I want to point out for sure is the 663 field for complex see also reference name, as we ran into this with Anne Rice. This is explanatory text and headings referred to that are required when relationships exist between an established name and other established names, that relationships that cannot be adequately conveyed by one or more simple cross-references generated from 5XX. So as you can see above, this field essentially spells out what we saw in the 500s. So lastly, we have the 667 to 68X fields of the note or the notes fields. So we have the 667 field, or the non-public general note. So this note provides general information about a 1XX heading for which a specialized note field has not been defined. Information may be permanent or temporary and may or may not be written in a form that is adequate for public display. Each distinct item of information is contained in a separate 667 field. And so these are two big notes from the Germany record we were looking at earlier. And so what this pretty much spells out is how you can use those different authorized terms when you're cataloging. All right. And our other 6X field is the 670 field, which personally I feel is one of the most important records in fields in an authority record. And this is the source data found. Citation for a consulted source in which information is found related in some manner to the entity represented by the authority record or related entities may also include the information found in the source. Each source citation is contained in a separate 670 field. Citations and information in this field are often not written in a form adequate for public user display. So essentially, this field is imperative when creating any authority record, but because it sets up your case, so to speak, on why the authority record is important enough to be created and where all the information in the rest of your record is coming from source-wise. This example here is for the Celtic deity Bridget. If you're interested in seeing this in more length, I would suggest looking up her record. So most of our 7XX fields are linking fields. As per Mark 21, the 7XX heading linking entry fields provide a machine link within a system between equivalent or hierarchical headings, whether they are structured in the same or different form, are from the same or different authority files or printed thesauri, or whether they exist as separate authority records. The inclusion of a linking entry field and an established heading or established heading and subdivision record for a name title, uniform topical term, form term, or extended subject heading, or in an established heading record for an authorized subject heading. So for this one, we brought together Dobietsky's authorized heading and then also a children's heading for crime and punishment. Okay, so then we're going to look at the 856 field, a couple of 8XX fields actually. So these are ones that I was kind of surprised to find in the authority records because honestly, most of these I see in bibliographic records. So these are the 856, the 857, 880, 883, 884, and 885. So these are fields defined in Mark 21 authority format at the present time. For the most part, these fields carry over the definitions found in other Mark 21 formats. The definition agrees with me. So first we have the 856 field, or the electronic location and access field. This field is information needed to locate and access electronic information. The field may be used in an authority record to provide supplementary information available electronically about the entity for which the record was created. The phrase networked electronic resource is used to refer to an electronic resource for which content is accessed using a network protocol like Telenet, HTTP, FTP. It is a relatable field, or repeatable field. Relatable to though. Second, the 888 field, or the alternate graphic representation field. This field is full content designated representation in a different script or another field in the same record. Field 880 is linked to the associated regular field by subfield 6, which is a linkage field. A subfield 6 and the associated field also links that field to the 880 field. The data in field 880 may be in more than one script. So the most frequent usage I've seen of this field is in a world language record with a non-Latin script. As you can see in this, the record points to Cyrillic, which is Russian. Lastly, we have my resources. And I want to point out, if you think this presentation doesn't feel extensive enough, one of my sources is Scher's Library of Congress Authority Records, which exists and is 80+ slides long. And on the call today, we have Barb Scobie, Dr. Pam Thomas, myself, Eric McKinney, Kat Anderberg, Ryan Rafferty, Katie Roberts, and Andrea Giosta. Any questions?
Hi, Mary, thanks. No, we don't have any right now. And this is our last online with the CMC for this fiscal year. So thank you for joining us for that. You are able to unmute yourself if you want to ask your question verbally, or you can post your question in the chat box. And we'll be joining you in August with Let's Rock Down to Electronic Avenue on August 14th at 10 a.m. And all of our Online with the CMCs for FY 2026 and our cataloging classes are all in L2 if you want to check those out. Eric just says, great job, so much good info. Does anybody have any questions? Do you have a favorite authority record that you've created? Or do you have like a favorite type that you like to create? That's my question.
Okay, I will take that and run with it. So my
Okay.
favorite type is actually series authority records because I feel like, oh, there's so much information you can put in them. I'm a nerd, so I don't have a particular one that I've created that I love, but I am that cataloger who looks for adaptations of Jane Austen and Elizabeth Gaskell and the Brontes, etc., and will create them just because I love them. But anyways.
That's fair. All right. Does anybody else have any questions for Mary? And don't forget to fill out the evaluation form. As always, we want your feedback and or suggestions for future Online with the CMCs, which would now be for FY 2027, but that's okay. I keep a list.
Okay.
If you don't have any questions about today's topic, do you have a general cataloging question you want to ask us? Just radio silence?
That's okay. I actually did not say everything in my notes, so sorry, folks. But it's already out there on L2.
Yep.
I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. In the personal name authority records, do you always put a Q qualifier with birth dates in there?
No, because that information isn't always readily available. If it's readily available, it is considered a good way to differentiate the name. That's for sure. But especially with modern authors or modern creators, you usually can't find that information.
Okay, so it's not forbidden then. You
No.
can act if you have it. Okay.
No.
No, and if you create any for like the local authors that we catalog, a lot of times we do not have any of that information to add. So
we do not.
No. Okay, any other questions? Okay, I'm gonna stop the recording.